Hi, Bob.
Naren, hello.
Welcome to the first episode of Growing Dentist Facebook Live Show.
Great.
And I'm Naren, your host. And today I'm super excited to have Bob Spielt, who's my guest. And the topic we're going to be talking about today is flip your focus. Bob is a dear friend of mine. I've known him for a few years now. We both belong to a group called ADMC, which is a group of dental consultants who help dentists create a bigger future. For those of us who don't know me, I'm the founder of Equa.com, EKWA.com, and the host of GrowingDentist.com show. So today I have Bob with me. Bob, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners who don't know a lot about you just yet?
Happy to, Naren. Thank you very much. And it's awesome to be here. I appreciate the invite. Glad that I can be your inaugural guinea pig.
Yes.
And, this is pretty fun to use Facebook Live for something that is educational, positive, and we hope by the time you spend an hour with us that you walk away with some great ideas. I'm a practice consultant and fell into dentistry actually by accident about 10 years ago. I've worked in medicine. Prior to this, I was a hospital CEO and surgical center CEO, consulted in medicine, and just happened to be invited by a good friend who was a dental consultant, long time in the saddle consultant. He invited me to go on a consult with him, and in 2 days I fell in love with this wonderful industry, with all the people in it, with doctors, with assistants, with hygienists, front desk. It's just a really incredible patient-centric environment. And the reason why dentistry is and I get along so well is the things that I love and have had great experience with, including teamwork, leadership, customer service, and creating really, really efficient systems. All work in dentistry. They grow your practice, they remove stress, they make money, and they create a really optimized patient experience. So I've been consulting in dentistry now for almost 10 years and have clients from coast to coast. I work with practice management, with transition management, and also speak. And recently launched my book, Flip Your Focus, Igniting People, Profits, and Performance through Upside Down Leadership, to be able to just share the concepts that I've been blessed to have been taught by some amazing mentors over the past 35 years of a career, and then have also, through experience mainly, picked others up along the way.
That's awesome, Bob. I know I've known you for a while right now, and the thing that resonated with me, and I think the reason we connected, is because we both follow our passion, right? We both work on things that mean something to us more than just it's a job. In other words, I know your story, which is, you worked in the industry and you helped people as a CEO, but then you stumbled into it, but you loved the impact you were able to have in the lives of real patients. And you also love the fact that you are able to, change lives of small business owners, because dentists are small business owners who are...
They're the greatest small business on earth, Naren.
Right. Absolutely.
And, to that point, if I can just share a quick story with you, because the word passion resonates with me quite well. In fact, I don't feel like I work very many days in a year because it's all so much fun. I've never worked harder or longer, but at the same time, never had more fun doing it and being able to help change lives. But I remember at the very beginning of this, navigating this career into consulting, and had a conversation with my son. I'd always been a paycheck kind of guy, working for somebody else. And the thought of becoming a small business owner myself, the thought of jumping into a pool was scary, to be honest with you. But I'll always remember the time that my son Adam, who's a much smarter businessman than I am and about 25 years younger, said, "Dad, you have to find the intersection of your knowledge, your experience, and your passion." And he said, that's your sweet spot. And if you play there and stay there, work becomes a calling and money finds you. And I find that to be true.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, work shouldn't be work. Work should be play. And the only way work can be play is if you do something you love.
Correct.
Something that, gives you a sense of purpose, sense of meaning. And at the same time, hopefully you help others, right? Because like Bob Dylan said, we all got to serve somebody. And, that's where the happiness is. Even kings have to serve somebody,
They do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious about the topic, flip your focus. I know we did a podcast, and for those of you who like to listen when they're driving, they could go to growingdentist.com, episode number 16, lucky 16, and you could listen to it. It's Bob and me talking about similar topics, but it's more suited for a drive to work or something like that. So. So we touched on this, Bob, before, but I really want to hear from you. What inspired you to pick this name, Flip Your Focus?
Great question. Thank you. Flip Your Focus is really the whole point of the book itself. And to describe it in a nutshell, it is flipping your orientation as a leader, as a team builder, and as a person. Flipping your focus means, for instance, as a leader and team builder, instead of the traditional pyramid organization where everybody exists to see that the person at the top succeeds, everybody in a practice, for instance, is there to see that the dentist is succeeding, that the practice is growing. And that's a very traditional way of viewing a business relationship. It's semi-military style. And it reaches a certain point of success, but it doesn't create exponential success. Flipping your focus is the idea of, instead of having everybody there to see the person at the top succeeds, it's reorienting your whole paradigm about your job as a leader to then see that your job is to see that your team succeeds.
Right.
The pyramid, inverting it, putting you on the bottom. And that's not to say that as a leader, as an owner, you don't have a critical role in decision making and resource planning, all those different things, but it's a paradigm shift. Literally taking yourself out of one frame of reference to another and saying that if my job as a leader is ultimately to set the expectations, get the needed tools, create the environment of trust so that my team succeeds, it then allows your team to become your hands. And in becoming your hands, that then frees you to work on the organization at a level that you never can if you're stuck on the traditional pyramid model of command and control.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. I think there are different levels of success. Like, just to talk about my experience, I got fired 4 times in a row. And the first 5 years as an entrepreneur back in starting in 2001, 2002, I was all about me. It's about, what I want and my goals and my things and this and that, and nothing ever worked. And usually I blamed somebody else because it's never my fault. And, and I went on to the next thing. I blamed the government. I blamed all kinds of people. And then finally, 2008 happened and we were about to go bankrupt, and a dentist who I was trying to convince to advertise on a website I was running at the time said, "You're really good at online marketing. Why don't you do my marketing for me? Because that seems to be a superpower you have." And so I said, I have nothing to lose. I've been reading lots of books about success, and entrepreneurs have made, amazing things like, Sam Walton's book about, Made in America. There's all kinds of interesting books. And I noticed most of them had a vision and a passion, and they really focused on making that vision or passion come alive. And at that time, I read a book by Dale Carnegie called, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And there was a quote that resonated with me in that book. He said, the world is full of people who are grabbing and self-seeking. In that world, the rare individual who focuses on helping others get what they want has no competition. So I kind of went through that phase, and we built Equa, and it's a pretty big company. We have 200 people, and lots of good things happened. So the first lesson I learned about success is that it's not about me; it's about others. It's serving others. Correct. And that was the very first lesson I learned, and we did reasonably well in that way. When we grew like 100 times if you look at where we started. But now I'm realizing that also has limits. Now I'm realizing to go to the next level. It's even before your customers, it's about your people, because they are the ones who come up with the ideas. They are the ones who serve your customers. So what can you do to help your people be happier, help your people, grow? Because if they're growing, of course, the results or the impact they have grows. So now I'm on a journey of hopefully having 1,000 times more impact over the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. I didn't define it as money. I defined it as impact, because my thinking is if you make a lot of difference to a lot of people, money's
an outcome.
Exactly.
Money is not it is simply a byproduct of doing what you love, doing it for other people, and being really good at doing so.
Right. And but I have to tell you, that was a huge challenge. I'm still going through it. Like in that 14 years, I was the superhero. I had to lift, jump from flying,
exactly.
What do you call that? The building on fire and all of that fun stuff. But now I'm realizing it's too big. Like we have 200 people. I cannot do that anymore. So shifting my thinking from I need to be the superhero solving every problem all day long to I need to help others be superheroes. Exactly. I need to kind of play the role of, kind of a visionary, setting the vision and the tone and where I want to go. But then letting others be the best version of themselves, be the best. And that's tough, though, because, at least in my case,
It is, Naren, it is tough. And there's this paradox that takes place as an entrepreneur or small business owner that, and I write about it in the book, that what got you there isn't what's going to keep you there.
Right.
In other words, the success that you generated to lift off to start with, which primarily had to do with you. You
Right.
were the product. You were the point of contact, you were the control point. But that becomes self-limiting by, just by its very nature. All right. You only have so much time. You only have so many resources.
Right.
So again, it's flipping that focus. It's shifting that paradigm to the idea that I have to now make my team better than me.
Right.
All right. And how do I do that? What I describe in the book, I mean, there are lots of leadership models, and most of them are really, really solid. For me, it just dawned on me one day after working with a client and trying to think through, how can I help this doctor finally get what it means to really, what are the mechanisms of leadership? And it boiled down to setting very clear expectations coupled with accountability, and I'll talk about expectations in a minute. Then creating a culture of participation. Because like Stephen Covey said years ago, no participation, no buy-in.
Right.
Okay. And then finally, the third leg of the stool is then as a leader in developing a culture of appreciation. Because it's appreciation that fuels the human heart. And
right.
keeps people engaged and keeps you moving forward. I love this phrase from Zig Ziglar, who said, you don't build a business, you build people, and
right.
people build the business.
Right.
And that is just a truism that we can lose focus on, but it's a fact. That's how it works.
Right.
So learning to let go, and here's another entrepreneurial paradox, letting go without losing control.
Right.
Okay. And that comes back to my model of clear expectations coupled with accountability. And what that means is, as I describe in my book in chapter 8, talking about setting roles, goals, expectations, and metrics for your entire team. Your job primarily as a leader first is to set the vision, the direction, and the pace. And that can't be delegated inherently by your role as a leader. We're a social animal. We look to social structure. We look to the leader to inherently do those elements. But after that, then The leader has to learn how to create an environment of trust,
Right.
clarify the expectations, get the needed tools, and then get out of the way. And one of the most effective ways that you can get out of the way is by setting clear roles and goals, knowing the metrics that are tied to them, establishing what success looks like when you achieve those goals, sharing those throughout the organization, and then using personal accountability, return and report time to be able to get back to how are we performing against those metrics.
Right.
I'm working with a couple of small business entrepreneurs right now. A lot like your story, Naren. They're actually not in dentistry. They're running a home healthcare agency. But they've got now over 400 people working for them in the past 5 years, servicing individuals who, in certain communities in the West that were part of the Cold War effort and now have issues attendant to being exposed to nuclear waste, basically. Okay.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's a pretty interesting model that they have, but we've been going through the whole process of clarifying roles, goals, expectations, and metrics. And in their mind, it's been like just huge. Suddenly these light bulbs have come off in terms of, oh, wow, now I actually know how to coach my people. Now I know what success looks like. Now I know where we're driving toward and who's doing well and who isn't. And once those expectations are clear in a leader's mind, you then share them, re-clarify with your teams, make sure, again, a culture of participation so that they're a part of that whole process. But then that becomes your scorecard individually. And it's wholly different than a job description, quote unquote. Job descriptions are far too one-dimensional. There's no prioritization. There's no feeling behind it. Roles, goals, expectations, and metrics teaches this whole principle of allowing emotion and heart to be at the center of somebody's job, define it as such, and then help them know what their overall primary goals are. Anyway, that's more detail than I'm sure you wanted, but
No, it's good. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this.
okay.
You talked about you need to know where you want to go, right?
Yes.
And you're not going alone. You're going with a team of people. You need to make sure that it not only resonates with you, but it resonates with your team, your clients. Because of course, if where you want to go doesn't resonate with your clients, you don't have a business.
Correct.
If where you want to go doesn't resonate with your team, then you're going to do it all yourself, right? So you need to figure out that vision that, like you talked about the way your son put it, where you merge, passion and,
knowledge and experience.
Knowledge and experience,
Mm-hmm.
and make a difference for others. You have a business. Same way, you have to find that sweet spot between what clients want, what your team wants, and what you want, and create that compelling vision. Mm-hmm. So is that the first step? Because without that, nothing works. So.
Well, it is the first step. Without it, I mean, it's kind of like the story of the Cheshire Cat and Alice in Wonderland.
I tell me the story again, please.
Well, I remember the story. She gets to this crossroads, and he asks her, "Where do you want to go?"
Right.
She says, "I don't really know." And he says, "And it doesn't really matter."
Right.
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 There's homework, and homework may be a phrase that isn't really accurate. It's more heart work.
Right.
Has to take place inside an owner to really clearly define what is the vision. People can't buy in to start with until you've really enumerated what that means, right? And it really, I'll put it this way. Stephen Covey, who is a man that I love enough that I copied his hairstyle. Actually, I lost the genetic lottery, but once it's gone, it's awesome. I don't have to go to a barber anymore. But he made this point in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that I really believe in. There are 2 creations. There is what he termed a spiritual or mental creation, and then there's a physical creation.
Physical creation, right.
You think about like building a home or designing a practice or putting together a website. All of these different activities originate in our core to begin with. And it then is an inside-out process, as he described it. that breed success. So one of the most important things that a leader can do, or business owner can do, is go through the work of defining that vision in a very clear, compelling, but emotionally captivating way, so that it has meaning and context to them, and has lasting meaning and context. In that process, then, you can employ your people to help refine it, to help define what your values are, to help even come up with what a mission statement is, which describes how you do or how you're going to get there. Okay?
Right.
And again, no participation, no buy-in. As Covey put it in describing writing mission statements in 7 Habits, he said that if you don't, the process is important as the outcome.
Right.
Getting the team involved in the process helps them establish buy-in.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about buy-in for a minute to clarify. So vision is critical, but I've been thinking a lot about buying in, because not about even beyond others, but even for me, like what brings me joy? What are the type of things I do that makes me happy, right? Because eventually you realize our external goals, whatever the goals are, doesn't make you happy. Maybe for a day or two, but then it makes you miserable.
Right. Yeah.
So whether it's a title or money or whatever you want to call it, it's just a temporary thing. So really what brings true happiness? I read a lot of interesting books. A book I would recommend is it's called Flow. I'm sure you know the book I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He studied, happiness, and his name is I can't pronounce his name, but I'm just pulling it up. Its name is let me pull up the book on Amazon. Mihail. Anyways, it's an amazing book. He studied people, who were extremely happy, and he talked about this state called flow, like when you're windsurfing or when you're climbing a mountain, or even surgeons when they're operating on a patient. It's like they're in ecstasy, so to speak. They're just in the moment.
Right.
And so I kind of looked into it, and I figured out what are the things that I do that makes me really happy. And I think we're all different, and we don't have to be a surgeon or climb a mountain to experience flow. He talked about how this mechanic, this old guy, experienced flow, and he's like a Superman, because without him the factory doesn't run, because he knows everything, and something breaks. So he talks about flow, and the reason I'm bringing it up is, like, if you want to engage people, especially your team, how do you engage them? And there's another book I love called Drive, and he says, money, for example, you have to pay people fairly, but beyond that, it doesn't really motivate people. What motivates them is the other things. And one of the things is letting them do what they love. Mm-hmm. Because if they do what they love, just like for you, work becomes play, right? Otherwise, work is work. And when work is work, somebody has to supervise you. Somebody has to tell you what not to do. And it just, so it gets really painful for all parties concerned. So I don't know, how do you engage people? I mean, I know one of the things you mentioned is, get them part of the vision. And a lot of times, like you said, money cannot be the motivating factor. Yes, it's a byproduct, but it has to be something more meaningful, something more significant than that kind of say, yeah, I'm making a difference. I don't know, you tell me. How do you engage people at a vision level? And then how do you engage them on a personal level? Not just when you have the conversation, but day in and day out.
Work is a very relationship-driven event. And how do I engage people? I think you engage them one-on-one and you engage them collectively. And you engage them by first one-on-one, setting goals, listening, asking for feedback. I mean, obviously, I could backtrack and talk about hiring and finding the right people, and I'm going to make an assumption that you've got the right people on the bus, to use Jim Collins' phrase.
Right.
Okay. Once you do that, though, it's about asking really great questions. It's about making sure that you have the time to actually foster relationships at work. A key element that I use and have used professionally, and I discussed in my book, are called one-on-ones. the opportunity to sit down monthly, bi-monthly, or sometimes for dentists, I'll recommend every 4 months, but you actually sit down with your team members, discuss their progress on goals, discuss the things that they're doing well, set new goals, ask for feedback, come up with follow-up items, and talk about how they're doing. I mean, engagement really is a matter of, I'll use another phrase that I'll borrow from Covey, you can buy a person's back, but you can't buy their heart. They give it to you.
Right.
How do they give it to you? They give it to you if they trust you, and they give it to you if they really believe that you are genuinely interested in their success and in their career and in them as a person. That creates engagement. That creates connection. And then it's about defining what is the highest and best for that individual. I mean, the term flow is an awesome concept. It's so easy to capture and grasp. I use the phrase highest and best, which I learned from one of my mentors. What optimizes that person's talents and skills, and how are they complemented by the people that are around them to see that they stay at that point?
Right. I mean, I think I'm just reflecting on my business. So I have quite a few people. 200 is a big number, but
it's a big number, yeah.
80% of my meetings are one-on-one. And I encourage my team, my managers to have meetings with, I don't even have the word manager, I have the word coach. And the reason is you are supposed to help people. You're not supposed to tell people what to do.
Correct.
You're supposed to help people figure out what they're passionate about, help them improve in that area, and then help them play with others. It's like a coach at a football field, right? You're helping them play their A game, but play an A game with others.
It's about being a catalyst.
Right.
I mean, that's literally the role truly effective leaders play, is being a catalyst.
Right.
And being able to be that missing element that then creates this enormous amount of energy. And that's a great model, Naren. I mean, to have your managers call coaches, because that's literally their role.
Right.
Coach somebody to a higher level of performance.
Right.
And be so in tune with them that they can see where those opportunities are that maybe the person isn't even aware of, where they can shine.
Exactly. And if you help them grow,
mm-hmm.
Success is a byproduct. If they are playing at 90% level versus 70%, what, your customers are going to feel it.
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a dental practice, they feel it automatically.
Right.
When you have a team that is truly A, bought in, B, engaged, and C, having fun. And that's not to minimize. A dental practice can be a stressful place, but you know what? You can have positive stress or negative stress.
Right.
Really effective teams take that stress and they make it positive because they've got this attitude. You know what? It may be too hard for the other guys, but it's just right for us.
Right. Okay.
And then they just perform at a level where when patients come in, they can sense that, this is a special place. This is a place that has an entirely different feel. And I'm going to use that term decidedly, feel.
Right.
And then that opens up their possibility to what the doctor can even talk to them about, because feelings establish trust. Right. Because we're all in the business of growing confidence, getting people to know you, like you, and trust you. Yeah. And then building a bridge to help them achieve their dreams. Exactly. Yeah, because it's not about you, it's about them and their dreams, right? Yeah. And that's interesting. One of the things I do with all my clients is I ask them, about their dreams. Where do you want to be? Because business is a kind of a vehicle for achieving your dreams. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, it's not money. It's about time. It's about purpose. It's about relationships. Yes, money is part of it because it's a great tool to achieve, the time freedom you want. And it's a tool. It's a tool. Absolutely. I've talked to some of my clients for 8 years, 9 years, and it changes. What it used to be when they're like a young guy out of school is very different from when they have a kid, when they are older, when the kids leave home. Yep. When they bring in that associate, when they finally feel like their practice at a stage where now they can think about, can I go on that mission, that dental mission someplace? Can I take the family on vacation? It does shift over time, and businesses evolve. And the common denominator I've seen with clients that are able to achieve those type of dreams faster and better and more effectively is that they, like we've been talking about, they realize it's not about them.
Right.
It's about how to make their teams the very best they can be.
Right.
And how do they energize, motivate, how do they teach them to be problem solvers instead of problem finders? And all these elements that then allow the doctor to do the thing they love to do the most, which is be chairside.
Right.
Knowing that around them, everything else is where it should be. And if it isn't, they've got the ability to be able to solve those problems.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I've met all kinds of doctors. Some are more business-minded, if I may use that word. They're entrepreneurial. But most, they love the clinical side. And
Most
again,
are scientists.
I'm sorry?
Most are scientists.
Right. They love the details.
They love precision. They love that point of perfection where a restoration is ideal or where a patient says yes to a full mouth treatment.
Right. Right. And then I think the other downside is school doesn't teach you how to lead people, how to lead a practice, how to, inspire people, how to, so a lot of these things, unfortunately, they come in cold and then they have to kind of figure out the hard way.
But just like you and I have.
Right.
I mean, as I put it to clients, here's the reality. Even if school had taught it to you, you wouldn't value it. You wouldn't have the context.
Right. Right.
Even understand really what the lesson was until you've had experience. And I love this definition. Experience is what happens when you were hoping for something else.
Right.
And it's true. You get beat up along the way. Things happen. You make mistakes. But suddenly, if that makes you humble and hungry,
right,
start to search for the answers. I mean, there's this interesting progression. You talk about progression of goals and dreams. There's also a mental progression that takes place with doctors in particular, but I think any professional, is that when you leave school, you leave with this idea that you now have all the answers.
Right.
Over about a 3 to 5 year period of time, as you find that, whoa, maybe I don't have all the answers. There's another flip that takes place. And that is, instead of realizing that the answers are really what matters, it's learning how to ask the right questions.
Questions, right.
Okay, because the questions are the answers. And then you become hungry, and then you start seeking mentors and finding CE and other things that will then finally start to feed this desire to go from a single tooth solution to finally viewing the mouth in its entirety as a system. Right.
And I love the fact that you brought it up. Like, if you ask the wrong question, you'll absolutely get the wrong answer, right? There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And an example is a lot of doctors ask the patients, how did you hear about our practice? It was the perfect question when information was not in our fingertips, right? So in the old days, I literally flipped through the yellow page book and I had a toothache and you are the first guy I saw and I came to you, right? Perfect answer, because that's the only way for me to find something. Or I see this huge billboard and, today I needed something, so I called you. But today, people have so much information. They know more about you and your kids and your education than sometimes you may even know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have reviews and they have all these online stuff. So asking the wrong question will get you absolutely lost. It's like having the wrong map. So you're in New York, you have a map of Chicago. You know what? You can drive hard as you want, as long as you want. You're not going to find your way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I see that a lot, because I think what happens is we learn something. It used to be the right question 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but the world had changed.
Mm-hmm.
That question that got you where you were is not going to get you where you need to go. You have to ask different questions.
Correct.
And I think I love what you're saying about the vision, engagement. And I think engagement is more important today than before. And I think partly because of the societal changes that are happening, right? I mean, 100 years ago, most of us spent all our time, putting food on the table. We worked all day long from 6 to 6, or I don't know, real hard work. Now, computers are doing more and more things for us for almost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They are telling us how to get from point A to point B. They are approving our bank loans, you name it, right? So in that world, things are getting cheaper. The cost of actually living getting cheaper. We can have a coffee for 50 cents. We choose to go to Starbucks and have a coffee for $5.
$5, yes.
Right. So why is that? So because I have a choice. So I think in this day and age, you can't motivate people, whether it's your team members or whether it's your customers, because you're the cheaper or you're the best financial deal. I think you have to motivate people on something beyond that. So purpose and why are you doing this? And those kinds of things is becoming important. We see that a lot in the younger generations. Like you have to engage them on a purpose level, on a mission level. You can't engage them on money. Of course, money does come as a byproduct.
Money comes as a byproduct, and I remember in business school the phrase that money's a hygiene factor. And I thought, whoa, what does that mean? And the whole thought was this: that you never have enough. You can always spend what you get.
Right.
It's not the primary motivator.
Right.
All right. As Clayton Christensen said in his book, How to Measure Your Life, I think the goal as a business owner is to know that it's fair, it's in the market, but how you engage, especially this group that we now see coming in the workforce, is in the workforce, the millennials, is that you have to engage them on a one-on-one basis.
Exactly.
They want coaching, they want mentoring, they haven't seen good models. They frankly live in this online world with social media and other things that's hyper competitive, hyper comparative.
Right.
And so what they view is the world is somewhat from a disjointed lens.
Right.
But it really can help them see what's inside and what their true talents are. And as you talked about, 80% of your conversations with your team are one-on-one.
Right.
That's how you enlist people. That's how you get folks truly on board with what's taking place. And you know what? With that level of leadership as well, if they don't get on board, they're not a fit.
Right.
All right. But it's interesting that we want kind of hands-off leadership when it comes to managing an organization, but very hands-on when it comes to inspiring your people.
Right. Right.
Because that's the ultimate goal. You want to take your team and use them to their highest and best level, allow them to manage what's inside your organization. That frees you to then grow,
right,
to push the boundaries in a direction that otherwise you could never do.
Absolutely.
It optimizes you, and you create this exponential growth curve like you've experienced. Without, Naren, you'd probably still have 10 people working for you.
Right. Absolutely. And I think the other thing is we live in a world where 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 can be 10.
Correct.
The Growing Dentist podcast, it's only like a few months old. We have 35 podcasts, and there are so many people we have turned down because, one person listens and shares it with somebody else, and all of a sudden there's hundreds and thousands, and things can grow and grow and grow exponentially today.
Yes, they can. Yeah.
And classic example, social media, right? You do an amazing video, you put it on your Facebook page, your patients see it, and all of a sudden they're sharing it, their friends are seeing it, some of them like it, they're sharing it. Boom, before you know it, thousands of people know you, like you, and trust you. So you couldn't do that. Like this particular thing we are doing right now is broadcast in freaking every country, or like 173 countries live. And we are doing it from our, living rooms, our office rooms.
No, it is.
It's like crazy. The possibilities are endless. You just have to think differently and connect the dots. So we talked about the vision. We talked about engagement. Then you mentioned something that really is caught my eye. Of course, for those of our listeners or I guess audience, here is your book, flipyourfocusbook.com. Before we continue talking about the metrics part, can you tell me how somebody can get this book, just in case they're curious?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. You can get it on Amazon, and you just do a search for Flip Your Focus. and it's there, or you can go to the site that also has some bonus content on it, including interviews with some very effective upside down leaders, as well as a one-on-one coaching forum and a goal setting forum for upside down leaders. And that's just found at flipyourfocusbook.com.
Right.
It's been out a couple of weeks. It already became an Amazon bestseller. And it's been just really, really awesome to see the progress that's happened with it. Because here's my conviction, Naren, is that there's a hunger out there for really clear tools that you can use as a business owner to be able to create results and success, but in a very simple way.
Right.
And that's what this book is all about. It's radical ideas presented in a radically simple way, along with coaching questions and follow-ups, to help leaders at all levels flip their orientation, go through the process of becoming the very best that they can be. You know, there's always been this question, well, is leadership something that you can learn, or is leadership just a trait that's kind of that you pick up because of nature?
Right.
And my whole belief is that leadership can be learned. It's the way you think, it's the way you communicate, it's the way you act.
Right. So now getting back to what you're talking about, you engage people, right? Because on a one-on-one level, and that doesn't stop with one meeting, it's ongoing.
It's ongoing, exactly.
And then you have to be very precise on what you expect. That's what you mean by goal setting, right?
Yes, exactly.
Can you talk more about it and in the context of a dental team?
Sure. Well, in fact, let me give you an example in the context of a dentist to start with, all right? Because I think for your audience, this would be a very clear example.
Right.
The phrase roles and goals is something that Stephen Covey taught in the 7 Habits. And by the way, I mentioned Covey a lot. My very first mentor was a graduate student that worked for him back before Covey went on his own.
Oh, wow.
And this dear friend still is an amazing friend and influence in my life. But very first real boss that I had while I was an undergrad. And, you know, he taught us before the 7 Habits book actually came out, we had cassette tapes. Luckily, we didn't have 8 tracks. We had cassette tapes. and we had, you know, mimeographs, and then it became photocopies. And we would read and listen and teach each other every week. And this was his management model in particular, was I want you to incorporate these thoughts and processes and ideas in your mind and your heart. Okay? So roles and goals, I borrow from his book, but to take that further, then I say, okay, what are the expectations, and then what are the metrics? What are the success indicators that would say that we're winning in this or not? I was teaching this concept to a client a couple of years ago, a dentist up in Spokane, and I was sharing with him and said, now, you know, we want to set roles and goals for your team, but let's start with you. And he said, great, I'd love to. So we were just talking during a coaching call, and I said, okay, when you think about your own personal roles as a dentist, if you're to open this up even further, what would you say that those would be? And he thought for a little bit, and he said, well, there are really 2 that I can think of. And one is I'm a dentist, and the other is I'm a boss. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, you know, those are good. That's a great start. But what I'd really like you to do is think of roles and goals that have some emotion behind them, that have a sense of purpose. And I said, think about it. Next coaching call, we'll get together and tell me what you thought about. And the next call, Naren, he was just electric with his thoughts. And he said, I really spent a whole week thinking about this. And you know what I realized? Instead of a dentist, I'm a healer. Instead of a boss, I'm a coach.
Right.
All right. And I said, those are perfect. They resonate with you. They have true meaning to you. They go to the heart of why you're in this industry. Right. Now, what are the goals surrounding those roles? If your role is to be a healer, then what does that mean? And why I'm telling you this is you can see the differences. If your role is a dentist, you're going to have very different goals. But if your role is a healer,
right,
your roles are going to be extremely more well-rounded. What does healing mean? How do you promote healing? Okay, so then he set goals around communication. He set goals around CE and around training his team so they can be healers. Okay, and with coach instead of boss, and that was a whole flip your focus type of moment for him.
right.
Boss is this model, right? You know, coach is this model, upside down. Okay, what would be your goals surrounding being a coach? How often are you going to have one-on-ones? How are you going to communicate with your team? What are your team meetings going to look like? When something goes wrong, what are you going to do? How do you train your team to be problem solvers instead of problem finders? You know, and they really come, the goals come organically from inside you if you're really careful with how you set the goals.
Right.
If you have the goals in place, then the metrics themselves just fall out with the simple question of, okay, if these are my goals, what would be my indicators of success?
Right.
Okay, for the word healer, I mean, there's some very clear goals that he set surrounding those. For instance, what would be your percentage of periodontal treatment that is being accepted in your practice? If you're a true healer, and if you believe in this oral systemic connection, which he did, then if you want to heal, that's a metric in terms of how you're doing at that. What is your treatment acceptance? Okay. How comprehensively are you diagnosing?
Right.
You know, and those metrics just kind of come really through your conscience. And then they become the milestone or the kind of the yardstick to say, okay, over time, how are we doing against them? And if we're not winning in these, what do we need to learn? What do we need to do? Who do we need to get help from in order to achieve those goals?
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, I hear you, Doctor. I mean, I hear you, Bob. It totally flips everything, right? I mean, again, it goes back to if you ask different questions, you will get different answers.
Correct.
And as a dentist, it's me world. It's, you know, how many crowns, how many this, how many that. Mm-hmm. As a healer, it's them world. You know, how am I healing them? And usually healing is a two-way sport. You can't heal somebody without that person participating in that healing. So a lot of education, a lot of helping them notice things. I mean, a lot of people don't realize there's a connection between diabetes and gum disease. So having those conversations and training your team to have those conversations.
Empowering your team to have those conversations.
Exactly. Hygiene visits going up and the quality of the visits. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an excellent point. So what you're saying is maybe a bigger problem is not that you don't have metrics. Maybe you have the wrong metrics. Maybe the way you're looking at it is part of the problem. Maybe the metrics you're measuring is part of the problem. The other thing I've also heard people say is sometimes people have too many metrics. There's 15 metrics, not one or two. Mm-hmm. And they get overwhelmed because when you have 15, you can't move anything. You're just going from here to here. You're just looking at numbers. It doesn't mean anything when you're looking at numbers.
Well, it'd be like having 15 dials on your car.
Right.
Yeah. One of the greatest purposes of metrics is to indicate whether you're inbounds or out of bounds. But just like you have 3 or 4 dials on your car, but they indicate the major systems that are taking place, I think you can have metric overload. And then the personality of many dentists is that they love data, but then data freezes them in place.
Right.
Okay, you have to be able to just know, again, it's asking the right questions. What metric is going to tell me how I'm doing at achieving that goal, which is tied to my role?
Right.
Okay, and those are the critical things that you measure. And then with your team, then cascading it down from there, the same type of job takes place as you then establish emotive roles for your different team members, your assistants, your hygiene coordinators, your financial coordinator, okay? I mean, you think about that position dealing with money in particular. It's really easy to say, again, kind of a me-oriented role. Well, they're the collector. Okay. And somebody could make that the role of a hygiene coordinator or a finance coordinator. They're the collector. Time out. They're the financial champion.
Right.
You see, their job is to create a solution for the patients so that the care they need, they can get because of the solutions that we're providing them. Now, how do we know how they're doing against that? Well, we look at treatment acceptance for one thing. We look at how much care credit we're using for another. How are we doing at getting clear financial arrangements done at the time treatment is discussed? You see?
Right. And then everybody gets their goals, right? So the person who is the financial champion is focused on
their own particular goals.
Right.
And then you loop it back with the one-on-ones to be able to sit down and then discuss those goals and those metrics against what the performance indicators are. And the beautiful thing about that is, Naren, that often accountability is not performed because the expectations and the goals are so ambiguous. With the clarity that's created by this simple process, accountability really boils down to more just asking questions.
Right.
And it becomes easy and natural. And it becomes more of a coaching process instead of a boss process.
Right. Right. And when you're coaching, they're only competing with themselves. So if I'm the financial champion,
right.
I'm trying to be a better I'm not competing with somebody else who's doing something else.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I'm trying to improve and grow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's it. I mean, I think a lot of the times, two things I want to talk to you. I know we are kind of running out of time. One is teamwork, and the other one is getting out of the way. I know we kind of touched on this the last time when we spoke. What are your take on teamwork and, getting out of the way?
Teamwork, there are a lot of different acronyms and thoughts about teamwork. To me, it really boils down to one thought. And it is that the highest level of teamwork possible are the teams that, again, it's not about me, it's about them. It's flipping that entire orientation about why you're there. And it's taking on the viewpoint of what can I do to help the person next to me succeed.
Right.
All right. And if you have an entire organization performing at that level, you are playing a level of game that I dare say 99.9% of our other organizations can't even touch.
Right.
All right. How do you create that type of team is a lot of what my book focuses on. And it boils down to the elements that we've discussed, having a clear vision and direction and purpose, clear expectations with accountability, a culture of participation, a lot of appreciation, and then creating this organism that then just becomes self-replicating with a group of people that are totally bought in, not just to you as a leader, but into each other.
Right.
Okay. That's the ultimate team. I call it an unselfish organization.
Right. Makes sense. How long is your book, Bob? Is it, how long will it take me to read?
It's not bad. It's about 140 pages.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I've been told that it's easy to read. It's tough when you write a book, you get so close to it, but a lot of folks have said it's a pretty easy read. There are a lot of compelling stories in it. There's some good, great content. And, the whole idea, I've been so fortunate, Naren, to have some incredible mentors along the way that have shared some really, really foundational truths. And then some opportunities to work in some pretty tough environments where you learn a lot quickly. Right. I mean, when I jumped into being a hospital CEO and surgical center CEO, both organizations were headed towards bankruptcy.
Right.
And we got them righted. You learn a lot in that process. And when you take on tough assignments, you learn faster because you're forced to ask the questions because often the answers aren't there.
Right. And by the way, Stephen Covey changed my life. I read his book when I was in my like 20 or 22.
Okay.
I listened to it like 7 times, like again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a genius. I mean, like, so, this guy is a genius.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Every word he uses, there's meaning. There's nothing on this book that's not perfect.
That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
everything in there, you just wish you could wring it out and get more, because everything has a purpose behind it.
right.
Yeah.
So I bet if you're inspired by him, I'm sure your book is also like to the point, no extra stuff. Just
That's my hope. That is my hope. I mean, it is written for your audience, Naren.
right.
I wrote this with the intent, with my book coach in particular, as he stepped me through the process of writing, he said, okay, you need to define who this audience is. And I said, it's really simple. It's that person who's been out long enough, beat up enough to say, I want my life back.
Right.
Got me there isn't what's going to get me to where I need to go. How do I now relearn and change myself and change my culture so that I can get out of the way? And to finalize that one point, how do you get out of the way?
Right.
All right. It again, it's not to use this phrase, but it is flipping your focus. It's this whole mindset of, my job is to see that you succeed, to give you the tools, the training, the resources, and the feedback so that you play at your highest and best level. And then create the reporting mechanisms so that we're both on the same page and I can continue to coach you. But that's how simple it is, and just with the 1 minute we got left, I saw this example 10 years or so ago, and I write about this in my book, high school football team, my hometown, where the varsity lost 27 games straight. 27 games straight, that's 2.5 years of never winning a game. And they brought on a new coach who practiced upside down leadership. And the first time I saw them play at the playoffs, I turned to my wife and I said, Judine, I have no idea who this coach is. He wasn't storming up and down the field. He wasn't throwing his clipboard. He wasn't screaming at the boys. And all of a sudden I realized this is an amazing example of leadership. He got out of the way.
Right.
I interviewed him, and I knew a lot of the players that were neighbors, but I interviewed him, and it was an amazing example of the things that I talk about in the book, of how it could work in a sports team, but it works in a business, it works in a family, it works in dental practices. I've seen it over and over again. And it would be my privilege for folks to read the book, shoot me an email, and let me know what they got out of it.
Absolutely. How can they get a hold of you? I know they can go to flipyourfocusbook.com, but is there an email address that you would like to share with people?
Yeah, real simple. bob@spielconsulting.com.
Perfect. bob@spielconsulting.com. That's your last name.
Sam, P as in Paul, IEL, spielconsulting.com, all in one word.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to leave everybody with is, I think, the humility, right? As people grow, the great leaders, they become humbler and humbler.
Yes, they do.
And there's a story about Gandhi where, he was at a train station and somebody thought he was like a coolie and he said, carry my bag. He didn't say anything. He just carried the bag. Yeah. This is a guy who's revered all around the world. But you know what? He's so humble. And of course, he. But I think we all can kind of strive to be a little bit more humble, a little bit more, focused on helping others get what they want. So I love your book, Bob. And I'm so glad you were the first person on this show, because I think you set the tone.
Thank you very much. Wish we had another half hour to talk, but I know we got to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can have people send in questions and maybe pick your, wise brains from the last 25 years.
That'd be great. I'd love it. Yeah.
Be great. Thank you very much, Bob. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.